be only one gathering.
There could be only one. Howdy, everybody. It's season 6, episode 6.
There we go.
With half of 6 people on the show.
See how that works?
Half of 6.
Half
Nice.
Right.
That's deep.
The power of the mathematical power of 3 is what
we
the
don't
Musty
have any
Wargamers
deep.
works on.
No, we have to have deep conversation.
Yeah, we're the Musty Wargamers cubed.
Yeah, Musty Wargamers cubed. Radicalized.
Radicalized.
Totally.
So,
How's everybody doing?
Doing good. Actually, it's great. I actually was looking forward to chatting with Rusty tonight, and then found out that Dan's joining us too. Actually, so it's awesome. It was a bit of a surprise. We didn't even announce it. It's like boom,
Special
from the
guest.
basement in Iowa.
Yeah, well, I found out about 5 minutes ago too. So
Get over
I had
here.
to throw a hat on that hair.
But I'm sitting here talking about how I have nothing to paint, and it's just me talking tonight. And then Rusty's probably like, "We need help, ASAP."
Reinforcements.
Then you got Dan staggering in. All right, I got my Jameson tonight. We're good.
I actually had a rum and coke earlier, so I'm good.
Oh, okay. Nothing wrong with that.
Looks like we got a couple of folks in the house tonight. So
Yeah, we got
Mel and Brad.
Yeah, we got Mel saying hiya. And then we got Brad saying hello.
So, from a technical health standpoint, all right, got Bill in the house too. Wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
I don't see you flickering tonight, Rusty. I guess I didn't notice that till now. Like, you've not flickered once.
Well, there's a new webcam.
There you go. That's excellent.
I
Chris
got
in the house as well.
Really?
Wow.
Nice.
We got a whole bunch of people
Nice.
popping in.
Excellent.
From snowy BC. We just have cold. The last I checked, it was like 0 degrees when I just checked my temp before we started this.
No temperature. Yeah.
Well, we can't say 0 temp because if it was absolute Kelvin 0, we'd be toast.
Yeah. We wouldn't be talking. Yeah.
No. Throw some science out there. Just bought my tickets for the Games Con in June. That must be something in Calgary.
You know, I've never been if it is, but I'm also not a huge con person. You know, like I've never been to a miniature games convention in Calgary. I'm assuming it might be somewhere else. I don't know, but maybe it is. Oh, you know what? GamesCon isn't just miniature games. It's like it's everything, and that's
like a sci-fi game convention type thing.
Okay.
I'll let him kind of go into it, but it might be that it's actually like more than miniature gaming, and I have heard of one of those in Calgary. I just never went. Because you know me, it's like, you mean miniatures have a dusty table in the corner of the room? No, not gonna happen. Oh, he says yes, it is. It's the first time in Calgary. So maybe Brad can just type real quick. Like, do the miniatures have like a big presence in that? Maybe I should look into checking it out.
Yeah, we used to have a
I won't be painting
convention.
that day, so go ahead, Rusty.
Yeah, we used to have 2 conventions in Des Moines. We had a what the heck was the first one? Mel could chime in here. Both of them, I think, are defunct now, but
I've
we used to
never
have
been
a
to
lot
a
of fun.
convention.
I've been
What's
to
that?
quite a few of them.
I always
You
wanted to
have
go
never
to Gen Con was a thing even when we were kids, you know, and it was always in Wisconsin, I think, and I always wanted to go. And, you know, of course that was like pie in the sky, but so someday I will.
Yeah, I've been to, it's like Mel saying, yeah, tonight we're supposed to get minus 30 wind chills tonight.
Yeah, that's perfect.
Yes, it's the first time in Calgary. And
okay.
I'm not sure yet. It's like a 3-day event, and they say there will be tabletop
Will be
games.
tabletop.
Well,
Nice.
What I was
Yeah,
gonna
Fields
say
of
is
Honor, that's one.
at-
Fields of Honor was the one convention I was thinking of, which was a totally game convention. And then we
Okay.
had another one, which was a sci-fi fantasy convention where actually people dress up and do all kinds of stuff. There used to be gaming in it, then that kind of went away, and they went strictly. They'd have authors and stuff. It's like it was like one time we were at the convention, and they had the authors that did all the Dragonlance books that were there. And we were sitting there chatting around. We were in one of the rooms that they were in, and we were just getting all stupid drunk together. And
that would have been cool.
Terry Hicks?
Yeah, Terry Hicks
Hicks.
and Tracy.
Tracy.
Yeah.
One runs right off the other because you're so used to reading them for years, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyway, that takes
the books are right there. I'm
back.
just like right out of reach. But
my joke I was saying before is that maybe I'll check it out because I know I won't be painting, so I might as well do something.
Jeez. With an attitude like that.
It's like I miss conventions. I have not been to one in years. And it's an interesting thing. If you've never been to a convention, it's worth the time and effort to go check one out sometime, just for people watching alone.
I liked going to Comic-Con, and so I could probably go to this and enjoy it even more. But I actually, for the first time, went to a Comic-Con with my daughter, and I'll probably go again. I really like this year. I actually had a good time. Like Calgary has one. It's very commercial, like, of course, and it's all, but I really had thought it was cool. Like I actually got, I don't know if I talked about it on the show, but I ended up getting like the autograph. I've never gotten an autograph, but I figured I'm going to do this. And I'm going to go all out. I got first in line for, is it Mathers? The guy that played Apollo in Rocky. He was also in
Carl Weathers.
Carl Weathers, not Mathers. What am I thinking? I got it on my wall and everything. I still don't know his name. I got Carl Weathers' autograph on a Rocky kind of thing, and because I kind of grew up, like a lot of us in that age, like with Rocky, and I thought it would be really cool. I picked him out of everybody, and I was there first, and it was fun. Like it was really fun because it's just that was neat. And then just walked around the place and everything. So
cool.
Yeah, there's all kinds. It's like you can go to these conventions and they'll have specialty rooms where it was like a Gen Con where they'll have a board up, where it's a special room where you pay to go in, and a panel. You'll have like a sci-fi show, and they have all the panelists from the show will be on there, and they'll talk to them, and that kind of stuff going on, or some type of anime artists. They're ones that do the show, put it up, and they'll have a panel going on. I usually, every time we go, it's like very seldom do I ever go to them because we're always playing miniature games together. Like it was 3-4 days of BattleTech or something. And occasionally it's like, no, guys, I'm going to skip this next 2 sessions because I'm going to go play a different game because I play BattleTech at home. And they're like, well, we don't get enough BattleTech. Like, well, it's like, well, this is when I get the opportunity to go play something else too.
Something else. Yeah, right.
Go check other things.
cool.
And then Bill's complaining that it's 58 degrees in Arizona.
I can't remember 58 degrees.
Oh gosh, one was been like 2-3 weeks ago. We had in the 50s, didn't we?
I didn't. You might have.
It was a very short-lived. It was a single day. We had a schizophrenic week where we started off and it was sub-zero temperatures. It went up to in the 50s, and then it went right back down into the snow and all that. So it was like a yo-yo week, but that's Iowa, So.
That's pretty normal, yeah.
Looks like we had a couple other people join the room. I don't know if we said hi to Draco yet. I don't think so. And then Matthew Kelly. Hello.
Yeah. Yep.
Someone I knew told me about it. They're running a 3D printing booth at the event. Okay.
Huh.
Oh, the Des Moines version of Comic-Con. Yeah. God, I can't remember the name of it. But Mel and I used to go to it all the time. And there is also now a there is also now Loa.
Is it Iowa? Is that like
Oh,
a
it's
orc
Iowa.
festival? Is that Orc Festival? Does there need to be a GH in there? Like Iowa,
Iowa. Wog.
Iowa.
Yeah, it's like if you've never been to Gen Con, it's like our group of people. I've been going to Gen Con since the 91, 92, somewhere in there. It was when we started going.
Mm.
And I was like, there's sometime it's like I went 10 straight years with a break here and there. It's like over the course of 30 years, I've probably been to 75% of the Gen Con.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh, that would be cool. You know, my brother and I were always going to go, and yeah, it never happened yet. It will, I think.
But now we said we're not going to probably go to another Gen Con. So it's getting to be too expensive to go.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Got Clark in the house.
Clark, yeah.
Draco. Hello, gents. My favorite cons are Historicon. Yes, been to Historicon. That's cool.
I've heard a lot about that one. Yeah. Yeah.
It's like Mel's been to Historicon too. There's been others. It's if you want to go. That's basically the mecca of historical gaming.
Historical wargaming.
Yeah. He was also in Happy Gilmore. Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Afternoon, Matthew. Then was Iowa's version of 40K Con. Oh, we've talked about going to the Adepticon sometime.
Adepticon would be one that would be realistic. That's not that far for me.
We almost one time. Yeah, Clark. We almost went to Adepticon once, where when it first started off, there was nobody going. It was like a know nothing convention.
When was it? When did it first start? I don't even know.
It's been going on for, I think about 15 years now.
Okay, yeah.
It's at one time it was a nothing convention.
Pretty big now, yeah.
Yeah.
Huge.
Then I've been to the Warhammer Games Workshop convention that they had in Chicago the last time they had one. That was pretty.
They don't do that anymore, even do they?
No, they don't. They quit.
Yeah, I thought so.
Iowa.
Sounds cooler that way. Yeah.
Gen Con, Historicon are on my list. Yeah, that would be definitely, if you get a chance, go to them. They're very interesting. And it's like when I was stationed out in Fort Knox, it's a lot closer than it is over here in Iowa. It's like Pennsylvania wasn't. It was like cut the trip in half, you know. I was tempted to head to Las Vegas Open.
Las Vegas Open, yeah. That was getting to be kind of big for reveals for different game companies, including Games Workshop.
Yeah, it's starting to become like a
kind of a premier expo. Show your new thing for the year. Where are you heading? New reveals.
It's like Gamma.
Yeah. Yep.
It's become the new Gamma, I think.
Yeah. A lot of buzz on board game circles for sure.
The closest con to me is the Las Vegas Open. Well, yeah, that's just for you. That's just like 30 minutes away, right? You know, isn't it like takes you like 20, 30 minutes to go across the state of Arizona? Isn't that they're so small?
Isn't he somewhere close to Phoenix or something?
Yeah.
Bill, yeah.
But last time I went that direction, I got lost in Albuquerque. Made a wrong turn to Albuquerque.
Wrong turn to Albuquerque. Happens.
And we got the Very Silent Mouse has popped in from down under.
Morning.
Hello.
And we've caught up with the comments.
So, Rusty, what's going on in the hobby world and with your Musty drink tonight?
Well, let's see. Well, let's let me expand this for me. Go solo way out. All right. Hey, we're big. This new webcam, that is sharp. That is compared to the other one. That is crisp.
Nice.
You can actually see details in the background. All right, so I've been working on this guy.
True.
That looks good.
Oh, nice.
So this is completed. All I have to do is glue this cannon on. So I got
Is that 3D printed, right?
Yep,
Yeah.
it's a 3D printed. So we got the cannon. All I have to do is glue that on there, and that would
Cool.
be. And this plasma cannon. I come to find out when the person that we forgot to do was that the arm has got a power fist on here. It's supposed to be a power fist coming down. We made it so it would just have a like the plasma cannon like here. So we didn't realize we did that. So now it's like we're going to move the plasma cannon up to the top, and he printed off the arm for me. So I'm going to, once I get that, probably this weekend, I'm going to attach that so it will have a power fist to punch a face in and then have the other stuff. So that's what I've been working on. So I got that. I don't think there's anything. That's all I've done this week was just work on this thing. So I made the base topper on that. You can see all that detail.
Yep.
Yeah, it's looking good.
And it's all done up. And I got the crackled mud effects on there, like with all my Mechanicum army.
Oh, yeah.
So if you've seen any of my Mechanicum stuff. So
yeah.
It's going to be another
Citadel
edition.
Technical paint there?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's what it's called.
That works pretty good. I've seen.
Martian Iron Earth.
Okay. Obviously.
Yeah. From GW. I like
Rum and Diet Coke. There's a guy that knows a drink right there.
Yeah. And the drink of the night is Monkey Shoulder.
Monkey Shoulder. That's
Each one complete with a monkey shoulder at the bottom.
Repeat. Yeah.
Ah, that smells good.
Instead of having the worm at the bottom of the bottle, it's the monkey shoulder.
Yeah.
There you go.
Oh, there we go. It's a blended whiskey, Scotch, but batch 27. What does that say on there? Smooth and rich.
So where's that distilled at?
Let's see if I can read this. Bottled and nurtured in Scotland by William Grant and Company. They say anywhere in the back. Imported into New York.
Okay.
Well, William Grant is I think these are the same guys that do was it Glenlivet or Glenfiddich? I think they also do Glenfiddich. So one of the two. So basically, Monkey Shoulder. Some of the stuff you find in Monkey Shoulder is also one of those two. So there you go.
Nice.
How about you, Dan?
Actually, my wife and I, we always have happy hour, which I mentioned before. So we did that before, but I had, which I have mixed feelings on. I had a rum and Coke, but my daughter, being the cheapskate she has, got me trying that Kirkland rum. I mean, it's dirt cheap and it's got a real vanilla flavor to it.
Yeah.
But it's still not, it's not a Captain Morgan or, but
I've had their Scotch and I actually don't mind it, actually. The Scotch.
It's not bad. And in a rum and Coke, it doesn't have to be fancy, but it's different, so I kind of like that. So sometimes then I'll do, a Captain and Coke, and it's quite a bit of different flavor, but it is so cheap.
The Scotch version.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, for $20 you get a big giant 1.75 liter for $20.
It can make you an alcoholic because it's like, it's like 2/3 the price of Captain Morgan when it's on sale. Even
I think I had a 12-year Scotch or something like that. It was in a different bottle from Kirkland, and I thought it was good. Like I had no problem with it.
Yeah, well, wouldn't be my first choice, but it wasn't horrible, I guess. But yeah, you got to branch out, I guess. Well, no place to go but up from there. But that was me.
Well, the thing is that Kirkland isn't really made for drinking by itself.
Mixing.
It's a
Made for drinking.
it's made for
Boy, you're
mixing.
supposed to wash your car with it.
Yeah.
Clean your battery acid off
That's
of your
right.
terminals.
Yes. It's not really made for drinking. We just do that.
Yeah, we just, and then paint wise, just before we move on, I'm still big surprise. I'm working on my bolt action Soviets still, right?
Yeah.
But I am on the very final touches. I don't know if my camera's good enough to show, but I did get this is let's see. This is it's
Nice.
3D printed actually. I bought it off of Etsy. It's a bomb dog for the Soviets.
Oh yeah.
He threw two of them in for free. I'd ordered a couple of transport trucks, gas trucks, and he just threw those in. So I thought, well, I'll paint them up because I'm painting my last of my infantry. And then
how are you happy? Are you happy with the detail on the?
Yeah, the detail is good. I think it's a little more of a brittle type resin that person used.
Mhm.
Like on the trucks, I tried to drill out to put a magnet on the cab for an optional machine gun, and it was starting to chip it instead of drill, which was fine. But the detail was good, and the price was. It's a guy out of Texas, and he does a lot of World War II vehicles and things, and some infantry even that's 3D printed. And supposedly he got the printer for himself, and then he was printing some just for some cash on the side, I guess, to help pay for the printer. But I think I got the 2 gas trucks, and then he threw those 2 bomb dogs in and a little piece of rubble for including shipping from Texas was only $24. And I couldn't get one truck on sale like from Rubicon or anything like that for less than about 25 before shipping for one. So I thought, well, I'll take the chance. And yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. And then this is the other thing I'm working on. It's a T-34 76 Soviet tank. And this one happens to be, it's the only one I've ever gotten, but it's a resin and metal kit. The gun barrel, the fuel tanks around the side, and these tracks that are stacked up there, those are metal bits. The hatch covers are also metal, but the rest is resin. And it's from Trenchworks, which is, I believe he's in Utah. And they're actually poured resin. It's not 3D printed. And then I did magnetize it because otherwise the turret just flops off, of course. I haven't started weathering it or anything yet. That's just getting some of the base paints on. But that's what I've been.
Great.
Yeah, those I'm a fan of resin vehicles like that. They're sturdier, and you don't have to. Some of those Rubicon kits are fantastic, and they give you a lot of options. But they, you spend quite a bit of time putting them together. It's a game piece, as opposed to in the resin. Other than like if you drop it on the floor, that you usually glue the tracks on and a couple things, and I like the heft to them.
That's what I was gonna say. I was just waiting for you to finish.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, like, I have my tanks, my American tanks are resin, and I actually, even when they came out plastic kits, tried to get a hold of the resin ones because I just like the heft. Like feeling that it just feels.
I just do too. The Rubicon kits are amazing because they usually give you multiple turret choices, gun choices, stowage choices. You can make it an early one, a late one. Like the trucks, it'll come with a covered tarp back, or you can put the end gate up or down. There's all kinds of neat things. And I've used quite a few Rubicon kits for my different armies, but I do have a soft spot. If I can find an affordable resin piece that's got nice detail, that I got a weak spot for that. So,
and that's the nice thing about a lot of times when we look at 3D printing or like different things, like new ways to get models, like you're always kind of, I don't know, I can't think of an example, but it always seems like you're kind of giving up something at times. But I find like when you go with the resin 3D printer, it can bring you back to like being able to print it and get that heft feel if you like. If you like, you don't have to hollow it out. And you can still have like a solid piece of resin. It's going to cost you more, but you can still do it that way. And and when I
I agree. And it was kind of fun too. Trenchworks is a really small, I think it's, one guy maybe, or, a couple guys that do this. And then the same for the trucks I'd gotten in. That bomb dog was, just some private guy that did it. It's kind of, I don't know, it's kind of rewarding to do that, to go out and kind of search through the web and find these, sort of somewhat obscure either companies or Etsy. This was off of Etsy, was the two trucks. And you got to kind of make sure you're getting the quality that you want to, that you'll be happy with. But just so many options out there, and kind of nice to, I don't know, I enjoy the search of it too, I think. So.
Oh yeah. The hunt
Anyway.
is
The
always
hunt.
fun.
Yeah. Web surfing. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. I picked up a couple off of eBay once where they were saying, "Oh, these are nice 3D printed Russian trucks," and I got them, and it's like the wheels are like paper, like little biscuits, it's like really thin. It's like they had them painted up, looking really nice from the side, but like, okay, those look good. I'll take a chance on those, and you get them, you're like, oh my god,
needs a lot of work. Yeah.
This is garbage.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
like the buyer beware, it's like,
You take a chance. Yeah.
that's
And I
one
did
thing
on those trucks off of Etsy. I did, and I could see it. He had some good close-up pictures, and I could see there were some places where it had like some, some lines. It wasn't probably printed at the very highest resolution, but the detail was there. And then I actually, which I know you're probably not even supposed to do that, but I did use some sandpaper to sand. I could sand those lines out, and it turned out great. So yeah, took some work, but for the price, it was worth it.
Now, was that filament resin or is that actual resin?
It was actual resin. Yeah. Okay. I don't think I would buy filament for vehicles. I've never seen one that can really get rid of the layer lines and has enough detail to make me happy personally. You can get them really cheap, but for terrain, I wouldn't mind it at all. Buildings and bridges or whatever. So
Pretty cool.
yeah.
All right.
Well, tonight the focus is on Moosehead.
Moosehead.
And there's my update.
All right, everybody. Nice talking to you tonight.
You've been busy this week.
Yeah, no, well, actually, since the last show, I've done nothing. I've done nothing. I've been completely consumed with other things and just completely not into it. And I have to kind of get my mojo back. Feel like Austin Powers or something. Needed to go get my mojos from somewhere. I don't know where it is.
It's off wandering the wilderness.
That's right.
You're still getting games in though. Usually, I figure that's what keeps most people. It seems like if they're getting some games in, they're motivated. I don't get games in, but I stay motivated.
I haven't. I was getting a lot of them in, and but I've been kind of busy with other things. I haven't recently. So yeah, I have one coming up scheduled, but beyond that, I need to. I don't know. Maybe just sitting here in front of my stuff will help. I was talking to Rusty before the show, before you jumped on, and I was like, oh, maybe I can start on my Blade Runner sculpt. Just start working on it here. But to be honest, working with the oil paints, I get too consumed in my head with the color mixing and with what I need to do, and I don't think I could talk to you guys while I'm thinking about it, because I just get too involved, and then and then
multitask, yeah.
Well, and all I would have had to do in the last 2 weeks is prime these 3 guys that I worked on the last show, and I would have been able to just start those guys tonight, but I didn't. I didn't even take the seconds that it would prime it, So the only thing, and I have all these guys that I 3D printed that I showed on that show. I haven't primed them or done anything with them. So, the only thing I really have is my marble miniatures, and I don't like doing the inking, when I use the actual inks to do the contrast for comic style. I don't like doing that. And similarly with the oil paints, it's got to
focus.
I got to focus a lot. So what I do have is some wings that need to be worked on for both Ant-Man and the Wasp, and that won't take the show to do, but it might give me something to get something accomplished.
So is
Well, you don't
Ant-Man.
have to apologize. You're not going to hurt the miniature's feelings if you leave them sit.
I'm just apologizing being such a dud. Like I'm on a miniatures show and I like
Doesn't matter.
I don't even have anything. I'm not even doing anything with miniatures.
That's all
Well,
good.
are they drinking Red Bull though for wings?
Red Bull gives them wings.
Yes, it does.
Yeah. So yeah. And I have even. It's funny. Like this could be like its own topic, but like I have stuff in front of me that excites me, but nothing excites me to get me into the basement. Like you know what I mean? Like I have. You guys like, what are you talking about? You have stuff in front of you that excites you. Like Palmer. Like what do you mean? So I have like this Eldar, like Rogue Trader style. Well, maybe like second edition Eldar.
Hang on a sec. Let me.
These are the
Make him bigger.
yeah, like these are here's an Exarch and here's
Oh yeah.
these are the Howling Banshees, and I've got a few of these to paint up. And I pulled them out because I was like, oh, like I'd really like to paint these up. I could really get into this, and I've got them here on my heavy metal painting guide, and I was so into it when I was pulling it out. But then I go upstairs, I go to work, and at that point, by the time I come home,
make the donut.
yeah, I'm like tired. I'm thinking about like dinner, and then thinking about doing stuff with my kids, and it just it all disappears. Then thinking about the next day.
That's good though.
Well, I just been working on this thing, it's like focusing on that. It was like kind of exciting, it's like,
yeah,
hey, I 3D printed something for somebody and started painting it.
Yeah,
another beast for my Mechanicum army.
Yeah.
It is satisfying to make something out of nothing and then paint it and bring it to completion and have it all start just from locally or whatever.
Yeah, that is cool. Oh my gosh, look at that. You did it.
To go with this thing.
Oh, no way.
Horus Heresy, Age
Nice.
of Darkness, the rule book. $20 eBay.
Oh, that's great.
What's it supposed to be?
The book?
Yeah, I think it'd be way higher, right?
Oh yeah, it's like an $80 book.
Yeah, that's why I was like, wow. Okay.
They
nice.
they have the rule book is they got a $300 something box set, and the rule book comes in it. So people have been buying. They'll buy like 2 or 3 of these box sets,
and they're selling off the rules cheap.
Yeah, it's like just to get rid of them and make some money back. And
nice.
I'm like, hey,
I'll help you out. Yeah. Nice.
So I was just talking with the guy that I was doing the 3D printing with, and he was like, yeah, I got this, we printed this off, and he's like, starts talking like, I got a, he started printing off some Karskin stormtroopers for 40K. And he's like, started chatting away with, I got this, I'm doing this, I'm building this. It's like, what do you plan on doing with that model? And it's like, I'm going to add it to my Mechanicum army. And he was like, you got a Mechanicum army? And I started sending pictures of it. And he was like,
There aren't many things you don't have an army of, Rusty, if we're honest.
oh, I no longer have a Tau army for 40K because I sold it.
Okay.
I was like, I had this Tau army that I painted all up, which was kind of interesting. Is like my nephew, he's like, hey, you got a Tau army? I said, yeah, I got a Tau army. And I sent a bunch of pictures of everything. And he said, how much you want for it? And I said, I'll sell it to you for $450, which is heck of a deal. That's probably about cost of what the model at the time I spent everything for. And he said, no, I'll give you $300 for it. And it's like, I painted these guys. It's like, no, I'll probably just strip them. And I was like, when you're listening to it, like, you want to strip them. It's like going up to Rembrandt and say, I just want the canvas. I'm going to strip.
I just want to touch this one spot up that's been bugging me. It's like, what?
I'm like, well, it's like, well, you don't want it for $4? It's like, no, that's too much. It was like, I just strip them anyway and paint them the way I want. And it's like, do you even paint anything you have? Well, I want to learn. I'm like,
there'd be better ways to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like telling Rembrandt you want to strip his painting off. He's like, you got a great mural here, but I'm going to strip that off because I just went to canvas.
Yeah,
you probably you probably wouldn't have sold it unless it was, because it sounds like you would have sold it because he was your relative, like, because you don't normally sell your stuff. You know what I mean? Like you're not. I mean, you have sold stuff, but I was surprised to even hear that you sold it.
So I decided, what the heck, I'm just going to throw it up at eBay, and I did, and it's like, then suddenly a bidding war kicked in on it, and it's like I put it in for $450 on eBay, and some next bid on it. Okay, it's sold for what I kind of thought I'd get out of it. And next thing you know, it's going ka-chink, 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 ka-chink. Like these bunch of guys bidding on it. It's like, holy crap! And it's sold for $750. I'm like,
well, that's a 3D printer and some extra money.
Yeah.
Nice.
Speaking of the 3D printer, I just checked online just before we started the show, because I was over at the other computer shutting things down, and it's like, I wonder what Amazon's saying. Oh, it came down from 450 something to now it's 359. So
that's about as good as it gets, isn't it?
As low as
320 something, or
it was 329 around Christmas.
That low, yeah.
Well, I know
that
could
good.
come down, but the difference in price of $30 or $20 is basically some resin, equivalent. But I might just get it anyway, just to get going.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, it's still very interesting. I've been looking at that. What is that company that's doing all those medieval, like Crusader and Spanish? Seventh Son's been doing some videos on it. What's it? Reconquer. Have you heard of them? Have you heard of them though, Rusty? Right? Like Reconquer. It's a 3D print. You buy the STLs, but you can buy. There's people that are licensed to print them, and there's a lot of people. And you can go on Etsy or anywhere and find them. And oh my gosh, there's some great medieval stuff on there that I'm like, nice. It is incredible. And he just keeps coming out with stuff every month, because you can be a patron or whatever, and then you get the stuff he releases each month, and it's or print it yourself.
Yeah, that would be cool, is be able to just, because I've been looking at buying some more models from Lost Kingdom.
Yeah, that'd be the other one that's so tempting. All the
I started buying. I bought a few STLs of the Chaos Dwarfs that they have on there. So
see, and if you could print them yourself, because sometimes I'm concerned, because I'll read like in the reviews, and they'll say, oh, they're really amazing quality and stuff, but they don't quite scale with what I had or something. And if you had your own printer, you're just like, well, let's knock it down to 85% or whatever, and there you go. It's right to wherever you want it, because I'm always afraid of spending some money and ordering them, and then you get them, it's like, or they didn't use quite the resin, maybe that you'd like something just a little more flexible, for the swords or something,
Yeah.
So that would be cool.
Oh, definitely. Well, just looking at the Chaos Dwarfs, you can buy them from Forge World. It's like $100 for 10 of them, It's like to actually build an army. It's like you're going to need like 40 to 60 of them. That's a chunk of change.
That's tough to justify, even no matter how much you love it.
Yeah, definitely. That's not something I was like, oh, yeah. And then you look at like, well, these guys have something over here that works just as good. And I bought the STLs to actually print off the line troops. So,
yeah.
It's funny how the conversations changed over the years, and like, how like 5 years ago, we would all be like really kind of suspect about 3D printing, I think. You know what I mean? Even 5 years ago, like, I think I'd be like, yeah, but like, no, like blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't know. But now it's like all the rage, right? Like it's expanding
it's
within the hobby. It's expanding.
Far.
Yeah. And it's expanding. Like it's like more and, there was a point where like, if you knew somebody that had a 3D printer, it was kind of like a big deal. But now it's like, I don't know. Like
it's not that rare.
Everybody knows everybody knows a number of people that have one.
Yeah.
Well, it's like of the three of us, you have one, Palmer. You actually got two. Bill has one. Brad has one. Mel has one. Chris has one.
Like 10. Chris has like 10.
Yeah,
And,
he's
yeah.
making up for
Yeah.
the rest of us.
One
but,
or 10, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm
yeah, they're
close.
everywhere now.
Yeah.
Chris says 5 years ago I was printing lots of laughs. Yeah, that might be the case, but a lot of people, like 5 years ago, it was not nearly and maybe my time is, maybe I'm thinking 7 years ago, but it's not that long ago before, like,
Yeah.
you wouldn't be in a room with everybody talking about all the 3D prints they're buying and, like, you know, looking to get printed, and like we're talking more as much about 3D printing tonight as we are about regular miniatures, you know. And that that's kind of what triggered me a little bit. I was like, yeah, that's kind of interesting, you know.
Well, you go back when we started the show 6-7 years ago, was that none of us had anything, and I was looking, it was like $1,000 would get you a 3D printer, and I was painting BattleTech miniatures, 3D printed BattleTech, you know, from MechWarrior Online sculpts for other people. They was, you know, it's like, oh yeah, we're doing these under the table, you know, type of thing.
Yeah.
And they'd send them to me, and I paint them up, and it's, well, I couldn't do videos of them because they were, I guess, illegal to do. So I was like painting tons of them, but I couldn't do videos of them.
Yeah.
Type of thing. Until actually the lid came off, and it was like, oh, everybody's got them now, so it doesn't matter if you do or not. So I was like, then you get the okay. Then I'm getting people ask, well, where'd you get those? I don't know where they came from, but and the next year I was like,
and now there's so many. I mean, not only are there so many printers, and they've gotten so much better and so much cheaper, and the resins are so much more affordable, and you can pick what you want to use, but just the STL files that are available is like dizzying. You're like, it's like squirrel, you know. Oh my God, those are amazing. And then the programs, I think, have gotten, you know, pretty good that, you know, probably with just a little work, we could be doing, you know, some, you know, like buildings and stuff. Like Palmer, didn't you've done some simple shield design things.
Simple stuff. However,
but I
mean,
said that wasn't even a thing. You know, you couldn't even dream of that.
You couldn't even think about making your own thing, probably. You know, like,
no,
even like a base or something.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
My daughter, who just basically took a high school animation class, but was very interested in it, like very much interested in it. She's actually finished like a colonial water mill, like, you know, for me, you know, to do. And, you know, like, it just kind of shows you, I mean, like, what she did is pretty good. I mean, like, you can compare it, you know, like, I wouldn't compare it to like the most upper end, like resin models, you know, and things like that you can get, but I definitely would compare it to some MDF kits and stuff like that. And this is her first right out of the gate, you know, and yeah, like, it's amazing what she can do, you know.
Yeah, and in another 2 or 3 years, it'll be, you know, it's like, if it just keeps going, and there's no reason it won't. It's very popular, and you know, it's going to be a thing.
Yeah, definitely.
That's the thing I wonder. I know we're not on our main topic yet tonight, but that's good because I don't have anything to paint. I kind of wonder, when is it going to be that GW is going to actually enter the scene somehow? Like, either, well, like, when are they going to utilize the money they have to take their creators, like their designers or sculptors, and make STL files that are just better than everybody else's?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then just say, guess what? You're going to pay more, and we're not going to have to even put anything on the shelf, distribute, or do anything. But you're going to pay half the cost of the model. You know, why is that not here yet? Like, that's the thing. And other manufacturers are kind of doing that. Like, there are some that are selling either the model or the STL. Yeah. So that's kind of what I'm wondering, is like, with this conversation happening and like just saying like, yeah, like, it's becoming more prevalent. Why is that not happening yet? What, isn't there a market share they're losing now?
I agree.
I'm just curious though, is once GW starts doing that, when they make it STL and they put it out there and someone buys it, what's going to take it from somebody to just hand it off in a thumb drive and hand it to their buddy to print? And then
right now, nothing, unless there was a way to do it somehow.
Some type of, you know, unless you figure out some way to pay for it. There's a big watermark on the miniature that can't be taken out of it or something.
Yeah. Yeah. And particularly if you're talking about half the price of the model, then you wouldn't want to sell it for that. You wouldn't want to buy that, knowing that you can just get it from a friend if you were amenable to that, to doing that, like just to taking it, even though you're not supposed to. But I guess that's the question is,
well, how are they going to compete if they don't do that? I see very, very Silent Mouse says GW won't ever do that, Palmer. But what's the answer? Because look at Warhammer Fantasy. If indeed the old world does come back, I even question now, unless their sculpts are just so incredible that people are like, I got to have those. And some will. And some people can afford them and some can't. And some can justify it and some won't. Why wouldn't you just get 3D printed stuff? There's everybody's making proxies already.
Yeah. But let's say
the incentive to buy GW.
It's the same incentive as there is still now for some folks. So you have this spectrum of people, and there are people that are 110% like, I'm going to buy the models that GW puts out, and then there are people that are like, I'm still going to buy their stuff, but I'm still going to buy other stuff too. And then there's going to be people on the other side of the spectrum who are like, I'm not buying any of the GW stuff now.
Right.
But what about this? Because I was thinking about what Rusty said about, just handing it off here and there. What if the only way you could use the STL file from GW is if you use their software? And that software was the same software that you bought it through, but it actually kicked out that somehow. I guess
you have to buy it's proprietary software that you can only purchase the software to be able to use the files on.
And then the only thing that would still be a problem is once you still get the STL onto a zip, like a thumbstick, then you could argue, well, you could just move that around and do whatever you want. But what if we're in a world of technology? What if it was that it was
there's got to be a key?
Yeah, thumbstick that actually had one use only.
Your identity is attached to the software, which is also attached to the STL file, and they have to marry up. So it's your It's like when you purchase it, that key is the same as your key.
Yeah.
For everything. So the only way
there's always ways around that, though. I mean, isn't there tech people have always figured stuff out around that?
And that's true. But as long as they can get 95% of people that can't do it, then it doesn't matter. Yeah. True. But I don't know. Because we are in this world of technology and licensing and ability to use things on your Apple iPhone and all that kind of stuff is well done and understood by people that do that stuff. And so I don't know. It might still be a stretch, but it's interesting. They could somehow do that, I think.
Well, there's probably is a way. I'm sure they have to be looking at it because it's the elephant in the room,
Yeah.
The 3D printing, the way it's taken off the last year, 2 years. It does. The only thing that keeps me from just thinking it is absolutely the ultimate solution is I still like metal. Can we 3D print metal? Because I still, and I think I've mentioned it before, I always think I like not only the heft of the metal, of course, but like you've talked before, Palmer, years ago, on it almost gives it more value. And 40 years from now, that is still it's not going to break down or be exposed to light or heat or something that corrupts it. And then, or some chemical reaction that breaks down.
Yeah. There's no way that these two things, in my mind, at least in the way I look at it, this one might even have more detail now than this original, but there's no way these are equivalent to me. You know what I mean?
Yes.
There's absolutely no way. This thing I printed, which has great detail, and I'll probably love painting up. I might really enjoy it, but there's something about the original metal model. There's no way. For me,
and you could throw them in a stripper, and they can be repainted 3 times. There'll be somebody maybe someday has my collection and gets distributed around wherever, and they're stripping them and repainting them. But you won't be doing that with 3D.
No.
Maybe the product changes enough, the resin changes enough, but I don't know.
Chris said below, yes, you can 3D print in metal, so that solves that. It just shuts everything down.
Dude, why are we not doing that?
It'll be like
Wonder what-
something from like Blade Runner, where you have like this like being that comes out of the metal, like like you raise the model out of the liquid molten metal, like
Here comes the
Dude, if you could-
T1000.
If you could 3D print in metal, I'm on board. And can you use can you use resin STLs for that? Or does it have to be a metal? I don't know why it would matter, right? Or I don't know how it's done. Or is he making that up?
I'm sure that he's got a well, I know that they 3D print in concrete, and it's like a filament style printer, because I've seen where they make little buildings like for people, and they have like charities or efforts where they'll go and make affordable housing for people in like impoverished areas, and they'll use like a 3D printer. It's basically an STL 3D printer, or excuse me, a filament 3D printer, but it's pouring concrete on the same kind of mechanism.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
I don't know, like I don't see that style as a good way to make detailed miniatures, but maybe there's another way that Chris is thinking, like that I don't know how they get the metal to harden the way they want it to in a crisp configuration. Like they're not obviously using UV light, from like, I wouldn't think like, the way you would with the resin, UV light activated resin. There must be something else that they're doing.
Wow, there is a bunch of comments that we need to catch up here.
Yeah, Lord Deconum says that a 3D metal printer costs about the same amount as a car. But like everything else, except for cars get more expensive, but most technology comes down. So
yeah,
you kind of wonder like how it works, like
it
like
might be the
metal
process.
printer.
Maybe you can't really simplify it on a small scale in a house. You wouldn't be doing it, maybe, but
Yeah,
so they're
Wow.
3D printing their ships now. So
yeah, you just kind of wonder like what.
how would that work?
Is it,
speaking of kind of interesting thing, was that I just watched a show talking about, we were discussing, small scale warships a while back, right? I just watched a special on where those came from, how that all come about.
yeah.
It was World War II.
Mhm.
It's like in the gunnery section where they're doing the targeting and everything. They would have diagrams of every single warship that they knew in existence. So it's like, oh, that looks like that ship. And they bring it up and they go, okay, that's that ship, and then know what the scale of this is. And then they could dial it in and they could actually use it for targeting, for range. So just a little tidbit of information. And gaming came from it, because all these companies that made these had the molds and they just kept producing it.
Oh, sure.
No way.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Interesting.
It's like, yeah, it's interesting little bit of information.
I heard that the phrase "you sunk my battleship" originally came from that, not from battleship. You sunk my battleship. I'm gonna write that one down.
Oh gosh, that was a
Oh,
fun
let
name.
me catch up on some comments here real quick. All right, bottled water and whiskey. That's what you're drinking there, Mel. And we got rum and Coke, Diet Coke. Painting a bunch of new products for my kid. I'm having Kirkland rum and Coke. See, there's that nothing but the finest.
Yep.
You got Diet Coke and Kirkland rum. That's just barely hanging on there.
Oh my God, guys, Kirkland, really? Hey,
I'm not
if
proud
you
of
really
it.
want to drink something cheap, go Kirkland.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to
couldn't
some
drink it
Kirkland
straight.
You
Scotch.
might have to cure too long. That T34 looks great. Yeah, it did. Hello.
Thanks.
Oh, Barnes White.
Hello, Barnes. Thanks for joining us.
Oh, I don't know who that is.
I just ordered a brass barrel for my Anzac. Was it supposed to be like a Centurion for? Yeah, probably a Centurion.
Vietnam. Yeah, from Rubicon. Rubicon does good work.
Kentucky Deluxe, 20% Kentucky straight whiskey and 80% neutral spirits. Cheap, but it does the job. Well, if you when I was stationed down at Knox, every once in a while you come across stuff coming out of the hills, straight moonshine. Like, whoa. I have the last run of Schnabelguns from Lucas. Zamperio. I'm not building it. Got it 2 years ago. I'm hesitant. And I'm going to be painting some squats for my kid. Oh, okay.
No, that my kid printed. Not for my kid. That's funny how the brain works. Yeah, like when you read and your brain starts substituting words.
Oh yeah, that's why you can't proofread your own writing.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you start inserting words.
You just fix it, and you don't fix it. Yeah.
3D printing is the future.
Yeah,
probably right.
Oh, stripping things. Wow, just to repaint it. Yeah, it's like talking about the towel that I had. I'm like, no, it's like I'm not going to.
Painful.
Yes, that's the Saturn S is what I want to get.
Saturn S.
Yeah. Stripped everyone of everyone.
At least once.
Yeah. I've like my oldest Battletech miniatures about 2-3 years ago. I went through and stripped a lot of them because they were all painted with testers enamel paint. And so I stripped them down and repainted them. Like, wow, they look bad. So, okay, Recon.
He's trying to say Reconquer.
Oh, Reconquer. Okay.
It
like what?
Autocorrected. Tried to autocorrect, but he wanted Reconquer.
You know, when I first saw that, I was like, "Wow, there must be some like new company that's like real edgy or something." Like,
Yeah.
Say what?
What are you talking about?
I'm doing a ton of them
Reconquer,
right now. Okay.
They are amazing.
Look, love. Autocorrect, auto
correct. Yeah.
It's like I bumped my scale to 105. Yeah,
105.
Just so
see if you're able to do
increase.
that. Yeah, print one or something and see what you think, and then go crazy.
Yeah, that's the wonderful
That'd
thing.
Be fun.
5 years ago, I was printing.
Really?
And 5 years ago, some of us were like, "There's this thing called 3D printing." What?
Yeah. This PLA. It's like, what is happening? Yeah.
If I could print with mine, I still would be. No. I have printed almost 8 years. So it was like on the cusp of the industry right there. I created my own tank. Water tank?
Main battle tank.
In the next 2 or 4 years, you will see AI 3D sculpting. Yeah, they were talking about that word.
Really?
AI. Yeah. Where AI is creating stuff and they are no longer needing people to design things, artists to create the stuff. AI.
I have seen where they're doing art with AI. It is amazing what they come up with, Some of it's really crazy abstract stuff.
A lot of once it work. Go ahead.
Yeah, once it learns how to do it, it just starts pumping it out. And you just give the parameters what you want. It just creates the stuff.
A lot of folks that work in the computer industry, like even if it's like website design or like different areas, it's funny. I was talking to some folks involved with a company that I work with, and we pay them money on the IT side, and they're like, yeah, like very soon all this is going to be, they're like, these are the people that we hire to do stuff, like, and this is their job, and they're like, yeah, like pretty soon they're going to take all our jobs away. And it's it's humbling to hear that, right? Like when it's the people that it's their jobs, right? They're like their business, and they're saying that kind of stuff.
Well, you go back 20 years ago, individuals were still hand sculpting these miniatures.
Yeah, 100%.
Then, you actually had to have somebody physically create the stuff by hand. Now we have somebody that is just a computer generating it, themselves creating it. Now we're going to eliminate those people doing it.
What are we even here for? Now we're getting into the deep reaches of philosophy now.
Pretty soon, what the next step is, like after you get to the point where the computer is making the 3D print, instead of a person, the computer's going to be making like a 3D tank that actually fires and kills you.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Yeah.
next the computer actually walks around with tentacles with razor blades on the end and sends things after you.
Well, I've watched some things on YouTube about the cutting edge AI that's out there, and it is interesting because they are talking about, will it get a life of its own, where it's trying to, its own survival, and it looks at life different than we look at life, and they talk about how to control that, and it's interesting seeing both sides of that, and it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah.
Open the pod bay doors, Hal. Hal, open the pod bay doors.
Maybe
do that
because this is on the internet. Like there'll be a day when AI actually literally scans bazillions of videos, sees this, and knows who we are and where we're at. And it's like,
I'm already looking over my shoulder a little bit.
You talked about us.
Well, then they're all hiding in their basement too, so we know where to get them.
Yeah, that's true.
The Musty guys are hiding in their basement.
Musty guys.
Privateer Press is doing 3D printed stuff.
Yeah,
I'm surprised that.
Heard that.
Well, that Forge World isn't doing 3D printed. Everything they do is 3D printed.
Mm-hmm.
I get a feeling that what
there.
might be happening is that, Games Workshop is pulling all the Forge World stuff over to the GW side. It sounds like they're getting rid of Forge World.
Oh, okay. I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, because now you can go to Warhammer World and whatever, stores, Warhammer stores, and actually start ordering Forge World stuff. You couldn't do that before. You actually had to physically send your order in from Forge World to get the stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe they're just more integrated now.
Yeah, it's possible.
Or whatever.
I wouldn't be surprised if they're. I mean, I know GW last I heard was doing really well, but I wouldn't be surprised if, with everything that's being discussed, if it's gotten harder to sell at that premium of a price, the Forge World price.
Yeah,
that would be a guess. Yes.
Because, I mean, when you think about it, like we're talking about how much 3D printers cost, but when you think about the fact that you can just have like a few miniatures, like literally like this many miniatures from Forge World just in different blisters, and that can cost the price of an entry-level 3D printer.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Literally.
Like, truly, if they're character models,
for the cost
more.
of one of my Imperial Knights that I got from Forge World, I could easily have purchased a 3D printer and everything to go with it now.
And I think that proposition is getting harder for people to probably justify. But I could be wrong, because I don't have the numbers, but I'm just guessing.
Well, I've looked at it. There's so many files now where you can actually create your own army that will look just as good as what you can get from Games Workshop. And it's like, why do we need those guys? Other than the fact that people won't play a game unless it's official, from
right. And you'll still have that. It's just are they going to lose? At some point they're going to start losing market share unless they're able to, get the focus back on them. And if they can't beat them, join them is the only way I see them, coming out on top there.
There is that. We'll just have to see where it's going to go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like they may never produce the STL files, but there's plenty of companies out there that make stuff that looks just as good.
Just as good, yeah. I mean,
maybe GW will do 3D printing at the store, where you make your order, they print your order for you, and then hand it over. You stay.
Yeah. Okay. That could be a step.
That could be an a la carte thing. It's like, oh, I want this, I want this, I want this. We've talked about this before. It's like, I want this, I want this face on it. I want my face on one of these miniatures. And then you send the order in, they print it for you, and you go pick it up.
And they might even be able to do like what those licensed vendors do or printers do for just the guys that produce the STLs. I mean, they could farm some of that out if somehow they could make sure that for sure they're, doing it the way they're supposed to do it. But to get them in everybody's hands easily.
When you think of those, Games Workshop is really rabid when it comes to their IP. So,
But it's
We'll
interesting
see.
because look how many things that are out there when you start fishing around the internet webs about models that are just like I don't know enough about 40K, but I'm like, that's a Space Marine right there. And there's people, printing those off. I know the Plastic Crack podcast, is it Ken on there he is painting some Space Marines that he's been printing with his own printer. And they look just like them to me. And, but somehow how does that not get shut down? And there's everybody's doing a Warhammer Old World army for, they've got almost every army available, Tomb Kings, Bretonnians, Lizardmen. And some of them are just, they changed the name, but it's the same. It's the
It
same
looks
IP.
almost identical. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a copy, a robbery, but the IP has been taken.
Well,
I don't know.
Well, you think about Games Workshop, like the fantasy line, which we'll be talking about fantasy and other lines here in a second, but they basically copied a lot of historical stuff and just threw it into their fantasy line. So
yeah,
it's interesting.
There's nothing really original about a lot of the fantasy stuff other than when it comes down to it.
Well, the Bretonnians, even, that's stolen from Arthurian legend. I mean, there's nothing in there that isn't Arthurian legend. Even the lore. It's just, let alone the models.
I was just looking up the metal 3D printing as we were chatting, and it's called selective laser melting, at least is what one company calls it.
Oh.
Combines the design flexibility of 3D printing with the mechanical properties of high-performance metal alloys to create unique, strong, and lightweight parts, and even for the most complex applications. Some of these are very curved and organic-looking shapes. So it looks like it probably could, like I'm looking here, and it's interesting. So actually, it says the article covers the basic principles of selective laser melting and direct metal laser sintering, and how these relate to key benefits and limitations of 3D printing. And so, yeah, it's kind of interesting. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know a whole lot, obviously, but they do look like they make complex shapes more so than I would have thought. Like, I'm just going to share my screen for a second and just show you guys something, like just a shape. I just want to show you.
I wonder if you have to use extremely dense metals too, like you couldn't have the bendy like what we're used to.
Like the
soft metals,
the pewter.
Yeah, because you'd think to do that you'd need to have a more dense metal because you're basically you're carving out from a block of metal what you want, right?
Can you guys see this shape?
Hang on a second.
No, I just see you.
Still?
There. Oh, there it is. Yep, it's up. Okay. Oh, wow.
That's 3D printed.
Okay.
That's pretty complex if you look at all the holes.
Yeah, even that meshing on the side. Yeah.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Okay.
Could be some possibilities there.
You never say never. Yeah.
It could do that. It might be able to do like a Rogue Trader Eldar.
Or Tau, if you ever wanted to get your Tau.
Yeah, that's right.
They're very organic. Yeah.
It's like Mel brought up an interesting point here. I bought an Oathmark PDF from Osprey. They have it locked, so I can't even print it. I bet there is a way to lock the software to do similar things as a PDF. No file transfer, maybe only printing. Like this Oathmark.
Oh, wow. You got Oathmark, huh?
Yeah.
You just get that?
Yeah. It took a month to get here. I think it came across the pond, but it slowly worked its way here. 3D metal printers cost a lot of money. Monet picture paintings are really expensive. So
Van Gogh.
I have looked at
Van
it.
Gogh.
Van Gogh and Monet.
Squats. Okay, it's a rat Ratjer have the car.
I don't know.
Not sure what that means. 28 mil tank. I put it in Thingiverse.
It's
Okay.
one that he made.
That he made.
Fine.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
There's some good stuff just on Thingiverse. That's a good place to start.
Yeah, there is actually, yeah.
It's like the individual I did the sprint with. He was printing off chimeras from 40K.
Really?
It's an APC. So basically, he was just printing off tanks. So it takes the whole day to do it, but it can be done. Look up Slayer's Descent for an awesome Doom 80s movie made up by AI.
Oh, really?
Okay.
Slayer's
Slayer's Descent.
Okay.
Painted up a series of stugs for bolt action. Great minis with tons of detail, just like the larger model.
Nice.
Oh, we're caught up. We be up to date.
Well, shall we start our main topic of the night?
That we can do.
Might be good. We have had some good conversation. So basically, Rusty, it's what is sort of like if you could only choose one period to wargame in, like what would it be?
Yeah, that's the topic.
Okay.
It's exactly if you could only play in one genre or period of tabletop gaming, which would it be?
And, we've done this is a topic we've done before, and I would almost wonder whether you guys would say, like, if you're going to choose a genre, then you have to be like drill down to the subgenre. But the only reason I say is I would always, even though like I have like historical periods that I really like and I could challenge almost anything, if somebody said to me like, what would you rather do, like French Indian War or fantasy? Then I would say fantasy, because it means you could do just about anything. You could do French Indian War with laser guns, and then like you could do like World War II, with werewolves, or zombies. Like you could.
I see what you're saying. Yeah,
do whatever you want.
It. Yeah,
fantasies and everything, right? And even sci-fi is fantasy. And so, like I would easily probably just say fantasy if I was allowed to say that. But might make sense to just sort of drill down a little bit. I don't know. Doesn't matter.
More specific. Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah.
So who wants to start? Palmer?
Well, I kind of opened up, didn't I? I'm just kidding.
He came out of the closet.
No, I'll
I didn't have anything prepared.
It's not going to be. In a lot of ways, I'm interested in what a lot of people in the room, like in the chat, have to say. For me, most people that know me, like on this channel, on these shows, and on my channel, would know that from a historical sense, I would probably always choose French Indian War because it's like my main theme to wargaming. Like that's the one I have decided that I'll never sell my collection. That I'll always use that. I was thinking about it today before the show. And if I had like a close second or one that could potentially overtake it, it probably would be World War II. And I think part of it is just you have like such a great variety of mechanized, kind of combat and great, like cool. I mean, you could say this about any historical period, but I just think World War II has such character and such variety that you can use in the games, and you can use like all kinds of cool like tanks and like in a historical setting and stuff like that. And so to me, that's a strong contender for French Indian War, but I do like my my horse and musket and in the French Indian War period. And so I'd have to pick that. And that's assuming that I'm not allowed to just say fantasy, in which case I would basically do fantasy, like, if that was the case, because I do like fantasy stuff too.
I like, you could preface this way. Isn't all gaming fantasy?
Now you've taken it to the other extreme, right?
Talking about this subject, like there's no reason to. Let's just say all gaming fantasy. That's my choice.
Well, Palmer, put it. Let's say this though. Okay, like if you wanted to say fantasy, how would you more specifically define that to maybe where it would be one of your top two choices? For me, limit yourself for you personally.
So,
because it's like, it sounds a little bit like you kind of like to say that, but you feel like that's a cop out. But then, like, if you zoom it in, where would you go?
I would, and I could be wrong on this because there's so many people that are like fantasy nerds that like know all the different types and the names and stuff that I don't, like for the fictional, written word. But I would probably characterize it as sword and sorcery, and just say sword and sorcery. So like, basically like your, what I would call like, your Dungeons and Dragons and like your Middle Earth and your Conan, like, like that kind of, those kind of universes. I would put together. Some people would say those are not the same, like, they're very different, and stuff like that. Like, but I would kind of say that. And then I wouldn't be, looking at things like Blade Runner and, many other stuff that's just totally different, and just saying that's still fantasy, I got that too.
Right.
But even with that, I think it's a huge.
Okay. Well, how about between skirmish or mass battle?
Oh, now we're like in style.
Just
we're dialing it down.
Just within fantasy, though, for now.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I would say mass battle, but I want to say skirmish. And what I mean by that is the narrative aspect of skirmish is probably in the end what I would aspire to, like to have like cool scenarios and monsters and like stories. But I probably find myself enjoying the ranked up troops and the mass battle aspect that currently that's how I would probably answer. Is that weird? Like just
No.
I want to like have the narrative ultimately, but I think I probably would still choose mass battle because I enjoy that so much right now. Yeah. I'm scared of skirmish because I don't want to have to paint a different monster for every module that I'm in, like doing or whatever. And like, like even though it's less miniatures, I'm still kind of scared of the ambiguity of all of that. Like having, I know people that play D&D and they just have a miniature for everything. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, like, I don't want to do that. I want to do it, but I don't want to do it.
Well, with the advent of 3D printing, it's not as big an issue now, but
still got to paint them though and have them.
Yeah, you still got to paint them unless you paint the print all the different parts in different colors of resin and then glue them together, and you're semi-painted.
You could just use them that way.
Yeah. Now I think about it is that if you could only play in one genre, to me it would probably be fantasy. As much as I love historicals, I always seem to be drawn towards the fantasy aspect of it because I think that's where I first started. A lot of the stuff I read was, all fantasy books when I was a kid, and playing D&D, and then eventually we started playing Warhammer Fantasy before we started playing Warhammer 40K. So I think that's where my base is more the fantasy aspect of it. Because I do like is that when it comes down to it though, is that lately we've been playing a lot of fantasy mass battles in 15 mil because you can play mass battle in 15 mil really easy. That's the nice thing about it. But there's something to be said about, and I can almost say is that like Warhammer Fantasy in 28 is still a skirmish game because it's not a big massive battle because you got blocks, they're not, let's say you got a small block of 30 guys. If that represents 30 guys, it's really a small little force, to be honest. Even though you can imagine that's a company of like hundreds of guys or something of that nature. But I really do think that fantasy would be my primary genre. If I could only play one genre, it'd be fantasy first. But in the grand scope of things,
what would you described it, and you described all of the kind of games you played up in a fantasy. But to reiterate Dan's question, how would you describe the kind of fantasy that you would want to play if you had to?
I would prefer grand battles with large scale battling.
So sword and sorcery, or like
sword and sorcery style fantasy.
Okay.
So 15 or 28 or 10, where are you at there? I mean,
if I was just to start from scratch,
Mm-hmm.
I'd probably go 15.
Mm-hmm.
Because then you could fill out an entire table with a large battlefield of stuff, and it doesn't cost you as much.
Yep.
Dan is drilling down with every kind of topic we have. So resin or plastic?
Yeah, exactly. Paper or plastic.
Metal.
Yeah, paper or plastic.
Even though
everything's in either or.
One of the guys that we've been started playing with, he's the one that printed off that Saurian army for 15 mil, and looked pretty good in 15.
Yeah, they looked really good. Yeah, so, absolutely.
I discussed it with him, and he's like, he's going to change some of it, what he's printed, because he wasn't sure exactly what was to be expected. So he just rushed an army out.
Okay, that was in that battle report you'd done there. A little bit ago. Yeah.
When we were playing Battle Valor before we.
Before
we kicked it to the curb.
So Rusty, just if you had to choose like a historical period, what would it be?
Historical period, to be honest, it'd probably be World War II.
Naval?
There you go. Now you're getting in the spirit of it.
Well,
that's the hard thing.
You had said that on a previous show not that long ago, how much you like the naval. Like you actually made like a real.
I really enjoy the naval aspect of gaming. It's something you don't see very often, and I do love playing naval games. There's warships, and to be honest, it doesn't take a lot of stuff to make a game. It's like, if you had 20 ships on a side, that's a lot of ships. In most engagements, you might have 5. The biggest largest number of ships you probably have will be destroyers or something of that nature. You might have some cruisers, a good chunk of cruisers. You might have a battleship or 2 and a carrier, if that.
Okay, so Dan, what is the number 1 choice?
Well, okay, and just to clarify the topic, right? Is this that to play or to paint?
I mean, now that you've been a guest on this show, we now need clarification, and now you're asking for that clarification. Okay, this is like which war game what genres, period or genre, like would be your number 1?
You have only one, and you're starting from scratch.
Those are all important details. Then it's interesting because actually in the last few days, when I was out working, I was thinking about projects that I still would like to do, like in the next 5 to 8 years or whatever. What are my goals in the hobby? Because as you've seen, I tend to pick a project and then I'm immersed in it, and I go and I do it till, not that they're ever completed, but till basically it's more than enough to field whatever you want to do with it. And so I was kind of thinking about and then you see some new things coming out. I'm like, oh, I'd love to do that. But it's like, no, I'm not going to do that because I'll never realistically get that all done. What are the ones I want to stick to? And it still comes down to, and it's weird to me a little bit, but the game that and there's a lot of games I have not played. So, but what I'm always drawn back to is World War II. And it's funny for me, what I really, I tried to figure out, and I'm not saying I wouldn't enjoy Chain of Command and Nuts, and there's all kinds of other games out there I have not played. But for me, I like the 28 millimeter. I like the amount of detail and the buildings, the terrain that you can really immerse in it. It just reminds me, because as a kid, my brother and I were, in elementary school, we were reading books about World War II and just really intrigued with it for whatever, which is morbid, I suppose, really. But for whatever reason, we had all the plastic army men, and we were always, building fortifications and pretending, and we played army men ourselves is what we called it, and sticks for guns, and we'd be running out through the timber and throwing corn cobs for grenades and just, role playing like. And this kind of captures that feel, because when I'm moving those guys around a table that has really good terrain, I'm like, I feel it's like you're in the movie, and it's exciting to me, and and so the enjoyment that I get from that, and I even though it's all drab colors, I don't get tired of painting them for whatever reason. I love doing the research history on it. And like you said, Palmer, and of course it's air, land, and sea too. Even if maybe I need to limit myself there, but there's also jungle and desert and winter, and you've got all that too that you can model and play and have special rules and all the nations involved and their twists and angles and machinery and then whether it's early war or late war, there's just such that. But on the flip side of that, I keep thinking I'm really. And that's kind of what my American War of Independence thing was going to be, was my first kind of foray into like, mass battle, where I'm going to have tons of regiments and big, but it's funny because, I don't know, I need to always give it more tries, but I don't know how many games did we play, Rusty? And granted, it was just one rule system and, we played maybe 3-4 games of that Land of the Free.
Yep.
And I enjoyed it and we had a good time, but it didn't really, it didn't keep pulling me back, like World War II does. Yeah. And so I thought, but I'm always intrigued with that mass battle, the look of it. And I love to build large armies like that. Like even for my Soviets, I mean, I'd probably have 5,000 points. What do you need for bolt action? You never... I can always pull this off instead of this and this instead of that, but I would never field the whole thing. And so I have the focus and the motivation to build a big army, and I keep being tempted to do that, whether like Rusty and I have talked about the 50 millimeter American Civil War, which I bought a few of those, or doing 10 millimeter also. I've got some of the 10 millimeter War Master, fantasy miniatures, because I'm just so intrigued. There he is. I'm just so intrigued with that, and I know I could do it. But for some reason, when I watch, and I know that's watching, but when I watch videos of people playing those mass battle games, and sometimes it's, I'm a little hung up, well, the scenery isn't how I want it, or it's not all painted, or the camera angle isn't the best. But very rarely do I watch one where pretty soon I notice I'm not watching that close. But like when I used to watch World War II playthroughs that people do, it's riveting. Or Warhammer Fantasy, even those, I'll watch those start to finish, riveting, But it's funny, I'm drawn to that large battle, but I don't feel like it's an undauntable, an unsurmountable task that I can't get it done. But I don't know that, because that would be my second choice, would be, first is World War II, and second would be fantasy mass battle. And by fantasy, I'm with you on the sword and sorcery, type of a front. And that just intrigues me to no end, but I'm not sure if there's a game out there that I've seen that, I don't know, that just really touches me, or if I could, if you know what I mean, where I'm like, that's cool, but
for fantasy.
And I don't know if it's because of the mechanics or if it's because of the way, I don't, or, and I haven't done it myself. So Rusty and I played that one game but we used kind of historical type. Yeah. Well, you were using undead and I was using like a human faction, but, and that was fun too, but we just barely wet my whistle on that. So, but I've never had a bolt action game that I didn't just enjoy. I love painting them, but I want those big, and I'd love to paint where you're using the 40 by 40 MDF bases and gluing the four guys, everything I've got to individually base, because that's how I've always done. And I always, like, you watch Nick, he's the medieval warrior, medieval war gamer, he calls his channel now. And I was watching some of his stuff and I'm like, I'd love to do that. And I love the medieval, but then I watch the battles play out that he plays and I'm like, that doesn't, I'd be more likely to do Warhammer historical than like those sword point and those more historically accurate rule sets. Cause I want my cavalry to come flanking around and I don't mind casting spells, and that wasn't how it really worked. You had to keep a coherent battle line, and it was just kind of pushing to and fro. There was no, and that, I just feel like if I went down that road, I'd be disappointed. I
one of
don't
the
know.
things I wonder. So I just speculate here. I wonder if, because the visual is different in a mass battle game than it is in a skirmish game, but
Yes.
some of the thrill I've found in a mass battle game is sort of the command and control and fog of war component that you often have in like a mass battle game. And sometimes, like getting, your troops not even being able to give orders,
Yep.
and like your strategy you're trying to do not working because the mechanics are trying to incorporate those challenges, and like still being behind all of those masses of troops, but then like trying to get it to work the way you want. I wonder how much of that tension and the excitement that comes from that, the highs and the lows, you experience when you're just an observer, as compared to a skirmish game where
I've thought about that, actually. I think you nailed it there. I think that's true. You don't get that. You don't have that investment somehow that you can, that you're feeling that playing it would be different than watching.
And I don't know, like I just kind of speculated, but I will say that I've never had. I only played bolt action version 1. I have never had a bolt action game that I didn't like. I actually found them all very good. I don't know why I stopped playing. I think it was the same. I think it was because the people I played with stopped playing is the reason why I stopped playing.
That's usually what happens.
Yeah,
in a lot of games.
And I really liked it. Having said that, and because it was the first historical game that I played, believe it or not, I so much liked the first edition of Musket and Tomahawks that I struggle to think that bolt action was better, but they were darn close. And I don't know if it's just because I enjoy the period so much that it gives the edge to Musket and Tomahawks. Yeah. The thing that I will say is that sometimes in a horse and musket style game, when you don't have all of, because the thing that's cool about World War II to me is that you have like machine gun nests and like bazookas and tanks and like lots of strategy. Like you have like artillery pieces that are calling in strategically, like artillery, your air raids, and like there's so much variety there. But maybe I'm wrong, but I find that except for some exceptions where you have like some hand-to-hand combat kind of troops, a lot of them, the man is the man, but it's like the type of gun and the kind of vehicle and like all the other stuff that's changing them. The thing about French Indian War is that like natives versus like regulars versus grenadiers versus like, they are like, the difference of the troop type is very prevalent and strategic. Like it's not because one of them's got a huge gun and then the other one, like a bazooka, and like the other one's got a tank and whatever. It's sort of like your strategy is your troop types, which I would imagine.
Yes, you're right. Yep. I've played Musket and Tomahawks about 4 or 5 times. Yeah. Good game.
And the first, I've not actually, shouldn't say this, but I haven't played the second one yet, even though I've owned it since it's come out. I haven't, even though I have the miniatures already painted up. I have not played it yet. But that first version of Musket and Tomahawks, I absolutely loved. It's like, it's probably like my number 1 game ever. I'm trying to think, like as far as historically speaking, that was the one I played the most of any.
It gives me the same feeling as bolt action in many ways, but I think I enjoy the World War II genre a little better. So I know what you mean. It's got some of the similar mechanics. It's like you said, it's more troop type as opposed to what that individual man's armed with and his special abilities and ranges. But otherwise, it's very much with the card draw mechanic and some of the randomness they throw in. It's a good storytelling game. I guess I feel more storytelling on those type of scale of games.
The fear of the tank. I love the fear of the tank in a game like that, and then the fear of the bazooka when you're in the tank. Like it's sort of like I don't know. It's
I know it's like the one game we had over at your house where it's like, oh god, he's got all these bazookas, or I had the bazookas and I'm firing. That's like the entire game. I'm firing at your guy just sitting out there in the open. I'm like.
And it's like, intense. Who gets the next? Sometimes you need that next 1 or 2, dice draws, and the tension is always there, and it's very back and forth. On you're in it all the time. I mean, it's not like the other ones. I go, you go. But a lot of games have come past that.
Yeah, the whole concept though is that when the fear factor is like I need to have the draw come up so I can
Hmm.
get the
So
first
I'm going to
shot
shoot
on.
before he shoots me, or I need to get
Yes,
moved before he shoots me, or
one or the other. It's like, okay, I'm up. I'm going to fire my bazookas, and then I totally miss. It's
yeah,
like,
yeah. Or you get a dice and there's like three things you need to do first. And
which
and
one
so
of
it's
those?
you're
Which one
really
do you want to do?
analyzing it out. And and again, it's not a simulation, which I'm good with that. Some of those real simulations get, really dry and real heavy. And when frankly, I don't want to simulate warfare. I mean, I don't it's I'm reducing it down to just a game
Yeah.
essentially, and that's what I want to do. I mean, it's entertainment, and I'm not supposed to be horrified while I'm
Yeah.
standing there.
So the primary thing you're saying is that you would prefer World War II,
Hmm.
ground pounders, and with some armored support. That would be your
Yeah,
primary.
kind of that
That
medium scale. I don't,
yeah.
not 10 guys on the table on a little 2x2, but not necessarily like a Flames of War scale or O group or something like that.
Yeah, it's like the one thing about the bolt action, you get the feel of you're playing almost a company
Yeah,
of troops running around.
yeah,
It's not a large scale game by any means. If you had a
no.
larger, you
You could make it fairly large if you had the
yeah,
time and the table space, but
yeah.
it would work mechanically.
And Palmer, you're saying that the system you would prefer would be primary would be historical.
Well, it's funny. Like, I kind of went all over the place because initially I thought that I had to be fairly specific or whatever, and so I said French Indian War. But probably, if I had to choose, it would be fantasy, and then it would be but like if I had to choose a second or if it was historical based, it would be French Indian War.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's probably it.
So with fantasy, you would prefer 28 or would you prefer 15?
It'd be 28.
28.
Yeah.
And so when
And
you say that, sorry to interrupt, Rusty. Go ahead.
go ahead.
I was just going to say, when you talk about, when I'm thinking about this question, which I hadn't really prepped it because I hadn't thought about it ahead of time, but you start thinking about games, right? I mean, yes, if there was another game that was World War II, similar scale to Bolt Action, I'm not going to say that that's the one I would love. But so when you say fantasy, are you thinking like, okay, I know you're like, yeah, here he goes. Are you thinking like Warhammer, or are you thinking Kings of War? I mean, because those are whole different. I mean, they're doing similar things, but they're not, or something totally different.
Yeah. All right,
When you're
that's a good
thinking
question.
about the kind of fantasy you're thinking.
And it's a good question, and it's probably why I struggle with it a bit, and probably why way we navigated the question. I went to French Indian War first, but if with the games that are available right now, if you really twisted my arm and said for the rest of your life you could only play one, what would it be? And choose it, then I would say that it's going to be like something like probably like Sharp's practice with French Indian War. If I had to choose that over like Warhammer Fantasy, as much as I love the Warhammer Fantasy, I really do, and I'm loving it. It's what I'm playing, and I'm not even playing Sharp's practice. But if you had to say like, what is the genre or style of game that you want to play, and the period is what we said. And taking into account every game that could be available presently and that you hope to play in the future, and you limited yourself to that, then it would be fantasy. It would probably be like, I'd like to maybe play like Mass Battle Lord of the Rings someday or something like that. And just like, to me, if I could choose, like have the ability to do that and not limit myself, I would want the ability to do that because I just think it's so cool. Or any sort of like some sort of fantasy, like but versus just sort of being pigeonholed into just French Indian War.
Right, I see.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's complicated. I mean, if I chose the period or genre and it was just based on that, not thinking of the games available, it would be fantasy. But if you had to say like, this is what you got, like what you haven't, like what's available now. And like, this is the only games you're going to be able to play. Like I really liked the Sharp's practice that I was playing too. And I actually like that level Musket Tomahawks is fun with the skirmish, and it's some of the best games I ever played in French New War. But when I started playing short practice, I enjoyed the command and control. Like I actually really like just how all that works, and just needing to the focus on the leaders is a bit more the big men, as they call it, in the
right, yep,
superiority system, and I really like that and enjoyed that.
Now, when you're thinking about it, we've brought this up when we're talking about fantasy. It's like, as much as I like the concept of playing fantasy, I want to preface it is that if I'm going to be playing fantasy at the moment, it would be 15 mil. And the only thing right now that has really fit that bill of 15 mil fantasy would be Armies of Arcana. We keep looking at different fantasy systems to try to figure out if there's something we want to play. It's like we played Armies of Arcana. I enjoyed it. It's a system that you can build your force if you want to. Tried Battle Valor. It's like Warhammer Fantasy is good per se at 28. It's more, to me, Warhammer Fantasy is a skirmish system.
I see what you mean there. Yeah, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Because I like grand battles, because it's like it cut your teeth playing grand battles in 15 mil in Civil War and Napoleonics. You're like, when you're looking at a fantasy system, like, I want to see just the same majestic battlefield where you got armies and you're trying to do sweeping maneuvers and that kind of thing, where you can have maneuver space and smash at something.
Well, I got a question for you, Rusty, based on what you said, because so the assumption is you can only play one period of genre in the question.
Yeah.
And being that you like to paint too.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say.
If all you could do is play one game, and let's say you chose World War II, and that means all you're going to be able to paint is that one game. Are you saying that even though like you're only ever going to play that one game and that all your painting you would do for 15 million, you'll never touch 28 million again?
Well, if that was, you're locked in where you can't touch anything, then yeah, you're stuck playing just that one system. But
I know, but why not do it in 28 mil?
Yeah.
Because he wants the large grand
so you can paint. So you could, I guess the question is how much do you think you can paint a 28 millimeters miniatures if they only played the one game?
Yeah, you could paint a lot. You can just keep painting and painting and painting. But
kind of like what is the version of Black Powder, like either Black Powder or the Ancients game that's similar to Black Powder again?
Hail Caesar.
Hail Caesar.
Like, do you consider those mass battle?
They're 28, and I really, to be honest, I think they're more of a skirmish system.
Okay.
Because you're kind of limited
28 mil.
At 28 mil.
Yeah.
You're not playing a legion or large force on the battlefield. You're playing basically 100 miniatures at best. It's not a big battle to be in. They try to make it feel like you're playing a big battle, but you're limited by the footprint of what your army is.
So you're thinking like 1,000 men at least.
Yeah. When you look at when you're playing at 15 mil, you got 20 to 30 miniatures in a small block of yay big. And then the same 20 to 30 miniatures at 28 is got a big giant footprint.
Yeah.
Right.
Where you could have 4 different units in the same footprint as a 28 mils unit. So, and there's a lot of maneuvering that you can do with those other units.
Yeah.
There's more tactics that you can do instead of having one unit smash against another unit and grind each other down. You can smash it into one with one unit, lock it in place, and you can come in with flanking maneuvers with other ones. So it becomes more of a chess match. But
well, seeing it, maybe even I was just thinking as you're visiting about the maybe I'm even looking at the question wrong. It's like when you say genre, it's like, so that almost is saying what miniatures do you enjoy, right? Because unless again, I automatically was going to thinking of game systems. Like, could I play Warhammer Fantasy or Kings of War, something that fits into that niche for the rest of my life, and just paint that and play those kinds of games, not just those 2 games.
Mhm.
Or are we thinking, like sky's the limit, but we're painting fantasy, sword and sorcery miniatures? Or because if I'm just painting 28 millimeter World War II miniatures, and I could just play World War II games, I'm not. Fantasy would probably have to still win, because just you're more unlimited there, I think.
However, like I
Even in
think it's
creativity and,
Mhm.
but
I think it's more to it than that, though. I think you hit on an important part. I mean, and I think like it definitely has to be like, if you're playing miniature games, it has to be the kind of miniatures you want to use, and like that
right.
you like. But if you're committing, like you're really committing to one, then it also has to be a style of warfare that you would
True.
tend to play in, and
True.
like you, as much as you then the question is are you more of a gamer or a painter? Like then we go back to that other old age question, in old age and miniature gaming question.
Right.
Because if you want to use planes coming in, and you want to use tanks, and you want to use all that stuff, even if you prefer to have the diversity to paint undead and like like medieval, like knights and like wizards and like all that stuff, you may say, well, you know what, I still want to be able to paint like tanks and all this other stuff, and I'm going to take that over it. You know what I mean? Like, it just, I guess it depends. And like I want that kind of combat, like I want the tension of armored combat with this and that, and because I'm a gamer too,
right.
And luckily we were pretty much able to play what we want to play at the time.
Right.
Now we got a whole bunch of comments I think we need to catch up on here. Let me just do a little bit here. And let's see, where was I last at? There we go. I would be torn between 15 mil sci-fi and 15 mil fantasy. I think it'd be lean towards the fantasy, as I much like mass battles more than skirmishes. And Mel and I play against each other a lot, so that kind of stands to reason how we think about things. We both like mass battles, playing those kind of games. Fantasy mass battles left to your own imagination, definitely. That's the nice thing. I probably enjoy weird history games recently, so I would probably stick with dystopian wars and other weird war.
Interesting.
1 and 2 settings. Yeah, I enjoy dystopian wars because it is a sci-fi fantasy style. It's kind of mixing both. Because, and it's a warship game, so it kind of fits into that bill too. Which is an interesting concept when you have to think about it. It's taking has a bit of history and then twisting it.
Yeah.
Middle Earth versus Game of Thrones. Middle Earth all the way.
Yeah, same.
Like I kind of liked watching the Game of Thrones shows, but they really it's like.
And I actually wonder whether Brad was talking about when I was saying there's all different kinds of fantasy, and I think I'm not sure if that.
Oh, you're probably correct.
Yeah. Like not so much like which one would you choose, but or I guess it is which one you would choose, but it's like there are different kinds of fantasy.
Different kinds of fantasy. Yep.
Because fantasy is Middle Earth is high fantasy.
Yeah, high and low fantasy.
Game of Thrones is low fantasy because there's really not a lot of sorcery involved. It's like taking medieval times and adding a little thin veneer across it with a little bit of fantasy involved.
Yeah, very rooted in reality.
Yeah. I've never played a real mass battle game. Would like to get into that someday. And if you're ever doing mass battle games, 15 is the way to go, or 6 mil, one of the two. Mass Battle 20th Century. Well, 15 mil Mass Battle 20th Century would be World War II. Most definitely. Pick between fantasy over BattleTech. Well, BattleTech is a board game. So.
Oh, that's a cop out right there. Is it? I mean,
Yeah, it is a board game.
I guess you could say that, yeah.
Yeah, it's like
Well, what makes it a board game? Because it has spaces, you mean, or why?
It's moving on a hex system. It's if you don't ever play as a miniature game, it is a board game. We played as a miniature game, which is sci-fi, but I'd say 90% of the people that ever play it as a board game.
Interesting. Okay.
So, well, I never even got into talking about playing sci-fi. I enjoy sci-fi, but fantasy and then world historical, then it's sci-fi is my third favorite system. But you play what but BattleTech has been my longest playing sci-fi game system.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Oh. Okay. War Master was a fantasy mass battle game. That it was.
I am going to paint that. I have enough for an army.
Britonians, I have of course. I got the rule book here someplace. I just never ever bought an army for it. I played at the store where people had War Master. Would play with them, but I never ever did get around to buying an army.
Yeah, I bought some when it first came out, a few, and then I've collected an army slowly since.
I'm currently painting 2 armies of fantasy battles rules
for fantastic battles. Yeah, I've watched some videos of fantastic battles. It's intriguing. I couldn't quite go all in on it myself, but it is an option you should look at, Rusty.
Yeah.
It's not maybe quite the mass battle you're thinking of, though. I'll be honest there, maybe, but
yeah,
there's also sword and spear fantasy. Have you heard of that? That's sword and spear is a medieval ancients rule set, and then he released sword and spear fantasy.
No, I haven't heard of that one.
Novik or some sort of a name that it's in hard print. You know, you got to look for it, but it's out there.
Okay. I'll have to look into that. I think Brad sent me a Fantastic Battles video or something to look at today. I was just busy to look.
Yeah, check it out.
I've not played Bolt Action. Played Flames of War once. It would be hard to pick a genre just to pick one.
Just pick one, yeah.
I would prefer Bolt Action over Flames of War any day, to be honest.
I've never played Flames of War, but other than the models are cool, the game and play itself doesn't intrigue me, but I've never played.
To be honest, let me put it this way. Flames of War always left me feeling like I was playing Warhammer 40K, but with historical miniatures.
World War II, yeah.
Yeah. It's never enamored me at one bit. If I had to pick a rule set for my fantasy genre right now, it would be Dragon Rampant with a double or triple point armies. Yeah, we played. I think we played 3 games of Dragon Rampant right now. We haven't put any videos of it out.
I didn't know you had that. Yeah.
Yeah, we've been playing it. It's just
I have the Lion Rampant rules, but not the Dragon Rampant.
Yeah.
Same thing, but magic.
Yeah, the interesting thing is that there's no set movement where you move as blocks this way or that way. It's more of a rapid movement in any direction type of thing. The turns go by and you keep going until you fail at activation. And eventually if you activate everybody, then your turn's over. And
sometimes you get almost nobody activated, although I've heard in Lion Rampant 2 they made some adjustments to that where you can reroll or something on a fail or something.
that might be possible. And Dragon Rampant is like there've been times where like you'd go to activate your first guy and you fail,
And he fails, and that's
and
it.
it goes right back to them, and they
Yeah.
activate their entire army and then start tearing you up.
Yeah, that could
Trios
be-
Rampant has certain units that have free actions, and
Okay.
and so you can use them first before you start rolling, you know, to
Mhm.
get them in.
Yeah, we found that missile troops are really nasty. If you get them to activate and then they hit on 4s, and they can just tear you up. And like,
Hmm.
and
They always hit on 4s, or can you have cover or armor saves, or what?
well, there's cover.
Yeah.
It's
So
like if you're in woods, that can change things. But
help yourself a little, I suppose.
yeah, well, the thing is that you hit on, let's say you hit on 4s, but if you're in cover, you have an armor value of say 3.
Oh, I gotcha.
So for every 3 hits that you do causes 1 casualty. But if you're in woods, that means you have to armor 4, so it takes 4 hits.
Gotcha.
And it's like for me when I was running or rolling, it's like I got 12 guys in my unit. I'd roll 12 dice, and I might have 10 or 11 hits.
Well, you should
sometime.
have 50%, and then
Yeah, there's been times when it was exponentially high, and it's like, oh,
brutal.
yeah, very brutal. Picking what I could only play one game, I think would have to be based on what the friends would like to play. That's really that's how it comes down to is what's your friends are willing to play and what they're willing to buy.
But that changes all the time.
Yes.
Yeah, but you know,
That's
if you have multiple armies, you can probably always get somebody to use your armies and play you, right? Somebody will give you a couple hours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know.
That's the key. If you really want to play something and you don't want to,
or you could solo it, but it's not.
You do both. Yeah, you either solo or you paint both sides.
Yeah, yeah.
For me, like, you know, with something like the French Indian War, it wasn't a big deal to just do both sides because, particularly with a skirmish game, you know, like more skirmish style, because if that's the one you're choosing, then you're going to want to maybe even want to paint both sides. So,
yeah,
yeah, agreed. Because you want multiple sides yourself. Yeah.
And typically, it's like once you get into a system, how many of us have been guilty of this where you like a certain game system, you end up buying more different armies so you can change it up every once in a while.
Yeah. Well, I'm already planning my next bolt action army.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like that's why I have Russians, I got Americans, and for my bolt action, I got to work on my Brits.
Oh yeah, you were working on them.
Yeah, I got to put them together and actually start painting them.
Yeah, I knew you had them.
They are actually going to be, once I get done with these Civil War guys, those 2 armies put together and painted, then I plan on working on my bolt action.
Cool.
So that might be the summer project.
There you go.
I've looked at Fantastic Battles, but there's something about it that put me off. I think it was how the casualties were taken care of.
Yeah, it didn't grab me either, but I got to get more of a look, I think. I don't want to give it bad press. It was probably fine.
Yeah, I don't have an opinion.
It just didn't grab me. I've watched multiple battle reports, and the author actually, I think, does some videos up that, you know, demonstrates how it plays. I think his wife was playing with him or something, and that was well done. Anyway, worth looking.
That's the whole thing, is if you find something that really speaks to you, that's if everybody in the group really enjoys something, and then you just play the heck out of it for a long period of time.
Yeah.
And that's the way we used to play Dystopian War nonstop because everybody enjoyed it. And then suddenly one day it was like,
Well, then it's tricky too, because then your game group changes too. You know, one of them, they have kids or they move or job change and they aren't available on weekends or Thursdays or. So, yeah.
Using dice holders on small round bases to keep check on resolve. Is that for which system was that for?
Resolve. That was
he
talking about Fantastic Battles?
Must be.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would
that's
pick
right.
Sengoku.
Really?
Well, you're heavy into the
Test of
samurai.
honor, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He's got an amazing looking table. I know that.
Lots of good tables.
Yeah.
He's been putting that 3D printer to good use.
Absolutely.
There are no casualty removal or morale. Just resolve is all you need to keep tabs on.
No.
Okay. Well, that sounds like
Kings of War. Like
Kings of War or the Land of the Free. You didn't remove casualties.
Oh, yeah, you never remove them. You just your status deteriorates.
Slowly degrades to the point where
Yeah.
you break and
Where
disappear.
you're non-functional. Yeah.
Yeah. That's the big thing there is that you slowly break somebody down through enough casualties. They go down one level, then more casualties go down to the next level.
And it isn't even, like they said, it isn't even always just casualties. You're just, if they're resolved to fight, to stay in there, you know, you're, especially in the musket era warfare, you know, there weren't that many people that actually got killed by the bullets. It was just, they gave up the will to fight and retreated, you know, and then died of other things.
In the short practice game, it's like that you actually do take casualties off, but you also add shock on. So it's a combination. Right. And so you actually have shock and casualties that happen. And so I kind of like that for that reason.
I agreed. I have that game. I have not played it yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's like it's always an interesting concept where you're never removing anything. You're just removing their will to fight.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I think it was why I never looked at much. Rusty and I have our group tends to like casualty removal. Mm-hmm. It's like we like to know that we've done something.
Yeah, I always like casualty removal, but I'm changing my view on that. And you know, I'm more open to the other options now, I think.
I like the whole way it was like when we played Land of the Free. It worked the way it did.
It did work well. It was a good system. It really was.
Yeah.
And I would like to play again.
Yeah, so do I. We got the armies.
Yeah.
I play Conflict 47, which is a sci-fi bolt action World War II.
Mm-hmm.
It's
got a good solid fan following.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I can imagine if it would be fun if it's bolt action.
Yeah, it's definitely the Weird War, World War II.
Yeah, it doesn't personally intrigue me, just on a personal, you know.
Yeah,
but it's got some cool models, no doubt.
Yeah, I've looked at some of them. It's like over the years when they've been slowly growing the system, and it's like that's kind of cool how they do that.
Yeah.
Personally, I'm going to play something similar like that. I'd rather play like bolt action or some type of other
just historical. Yeah.
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 Yeah. Dragon Rampant heavy missile troops hit on a 4+ up to 12 inches.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
And then 12 to 18 is 5+. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. They definitely will tear you up.
Well, gentlemen, we're over the 10 o'clock time. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, Dan. I was just going to say I'm going to have to head off soon. And we're kind of at that point. But what were you going to say?
I was just going to say, just kind of one closing thought I was having the last 15 minutes or so was, you could say, well, why? I mean, this is just an exercise in what to pick a genre or pick a game. You know, everybody does it, but I got thinking all this. It actually, the point to it to me would be, is it forces you to look in to yourself. What do I love about the hobby? You know, because, you know, when you look at what we call the miniature hobby, I mean, it's a million things, right? There's a million games, million miniatures. But it's sometimes kind of, even like when I'm looking at a purchase or that kind of caught my eye, that looked cool. Mm-hmm. Then you need to look in and see, what do I really love though about the hobby? You know, is it massed? Is it skirmish? Is it the terrain? Is it the collecting part? You know, and I think it helps you think about to yourself and becomes clear. It's like, well, that's what I love about it, and that's why I love it. Mm-hmm. And so then you aren't wasting your time on things that are going to be kind of set to the side, spending money or time that you wouldn't do, and it helps you define what you do enjoy, and so that's the point, really.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even if you don't pick one, it's kind of nice.
You don't have to pick one.
It's a nice kind of exercise in thought.
Yes, exactly. Well, I don't want to make you late, Palmer.
Oh no. off to my next thing.
You like Mr. Rogers.
Exactly. Exactly. And now it's time to go, everybody.
Don't start singing though.
Is it the sweater? Is that why you said that?
Yes. Yeah. I don't think you were speedy delivery. I got to hustle out. Right. We're going to go feed the fish.
That's right.
Won't you be my neighbor? Cool.
Ain't you special?
Yep, I should probably get going too. I got to get up at 6 or before. Get going.
It says right on your shirt. Let's get moving.
Yeah. Right? Never ends.
Right. Another great topic. Thanks, Mel, for stopping in. Everybody's been coming in tonight.
Thanks, everybody.
Good to see everybody.
It was fun. We had a couple of good topics tonight. All that 3D printing stuff always came back in again.
Yeah, it's something that it's
hard to avoid.
It's right on the tip of our fingers that we all want to do one way or the other.
Yeah, I am close. I think if I just had more, and I will gradually as I have more free time, I'm just unwilling to give up my limited painting time that I really enjoy. And it gets my figures painted where I'll start this whole other hobby with, I'll be looking for STLs and I'll be trying to perfect the printing and the curing and supports and I won't be getting anything done. So I'm hesitant to jump on that yet.
Yeah.
So.
All right, everybody.
All right. Good night, everybody.
We'll see you. Let's see. This is the 2nd. So 2 weeks will be the 16th.
16th.
All right. Sounds good.
Cool enough.
That'll be on
all right
Palmer's channel, and we'll see you in a couple of weeks. I hope you guys enjoy their time away, and we'll see you in the next show, and we'll see you on the channels whenever we put something out.
Bye, everybody.
Awesome.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.